I pretty much never make videos like this. When I do, it's either for my channel members or for, like my Let's Play channel where I talk about different stuff kind of podcast style. So Kazi's going to say hi and I'm sure he will leave cuz he hates being in videos. You say hi. But today I wanted to talk for a few minutes about what's going on in America. And again, I know I'll lose followers for it. That's fine. If people don't want me to have my opinions or they don't agree and they can't handle it's different, they can leave, and that's okay. It's not like this channel does amazing anyway, but there was a killing in Washington, D.C. And I genuinely think it's really, really terrible. It was an Israeli couple from the embassy was killed in Washington, D.C. by all rights and accounts for just being Jewish and from having any association with Israel. Now, some people are going to say, well, why are you even talking about this? Why do you care? I have been very quiet about like all of the stuff with Israel and Palestine and all of these different things for a very long time. And my opinion won't change anything, but it's one that I did feel kind of like called to share. Like I felt like I should talk about it because where I live in Minnesota in the United States, I have noticed there is an extreme uptick in anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism, I can't even speak. Where there are so many people who are justifying what's going on with Israel and what's going on with the IDF and some of the bad things that they have done that I think if you're being honest with yourself, it's like you can see bad things they've done. Like I grew up very much Christian, and I still believe in God and still I would say I'm Christian, but like I was always told by a lot of different groups it's like Israel is good. And then, recent years I see this stuff like some of the leaked texts from when humanitarians were killed, like humanitarian helpers who were trying to get food and medicine to people in Gaza, killed by the IDF, by the Israeli military. And I see that kind of stuff and I say, okay, well, Israel's not always the good guy, right? No country is. There's obviously evil that has been done. But I also look at what's happening here. And I look at the United States, and all I really see is so many young people who are polarized by massive political streamers or massive political YouTubers or just Twitter or all these different things. They get their news through all of these other sources distilled to them, and then they're basically told whatever that person thinks. They'll be told Israel bad, and the Jews are just bad in general. But they'll hide that language under things like Zionism, like saying, oh, we're not against Jews, we're against Zionism. Here at the U of M, near where I am, there has been such a huge uptick in bullying of Jewish students who have never been to Israel, didn't come from Israel, don't care that much about Israel either way, a lot of them. They're just of the ethnicity or nationality or genetic heritage, whatever you want to call it, of being a Jew. That's anti-Semitism. That's not liking Israel. That is wanting to hurt people because of their genetics, because of their background, their ethnicity, or where they're from. And this happened after 9/11, I remember this because I was born in 94. So I was old enough to understand what was happening, but not old enough to understand like all of the ramifications of it and why it happened. But I do remember that after that, there was such a huge uptick of an idea that anybody who was of Arabic descent of any kind, anybody who was an Arab person, they must be a terrorist. They must be a jihadist. Anybody who wore a headdress, they were a terrorist. Anybody who was even involved in Islam. Hey, I have things I disagree with the Quran about. I have things I disagree with the religion of Islam about. You know what I can do? I can separate the understanding that I might disagree with this ideology and this religion, but that doesn't mean that every single person who practices it is an extremist or is a bad person. It means there's a small subset of people who practice that religion who are extremist and bad people. I think anybody could admit that. Like, you can find, criminal documents. You can find reports of crimes committed or terrorist attacks committed because of hardcore extremist Islam, right? The same way you can go back to the Crusades. You can find crusades committed because of the use of the church, to commit these acts of genocide, even when it was the Christian church. And you can find ones from Islam too. And my point I'm getting at is there's this understanding looking back at history that when you have a couple bad apples, it doesn't mean we get rid of the race. It doesn't mean we attack the whole group. It doesn't mean the entire religion is garbage. It doesn't mean the entire people group is garbage. And I say this about like everything. And yet I'm noticing more and more here there's this violence. There's this anger that I genuinely feel is brewing against the Jewish people because of, things going on with Israel. And yet it leads people to ignore other parts of that conflict. It leads people to ignore things like there was a huge terror attack on October 7th in Israel against civilians who didn't do anything. They were just civilians living here. I love hypotheticals. I love pointing out like a situation and saying this situation is kind of like this. Sometimes they land, sometimes they don't. If I have a problem with the people in the city next to mine, and those people, like, they let's say that they have a police force that's really mean and awful to my people, the way to deal with that is not to walk into that city and blow away random people who have nothing to do with it, right? The same way the way to deal with it, if someone was overseas, like far away from us, wouldn't be to hunt down the people who have the same genetic markers, the same, ethnic background or descent, what would you say? They've descended from the same group. It wouldn't be like to go hunt those people down and bully them or end them or erase them and then scream, "Free my city, free my city." But that's what's happening. There is so much violence being pushed, man, for what? What is it going to do? If you had, after 9/11, when there were people who were killed or bullied or interrogated by the government, it didn't stop terrorism. It didn't change things. All it did was it targeted a certain set of people because they were too brown, basically, because they looked too much like the people who did something. Haven't we learned from that? We haven't learned from that at all, from history. I'm sorry about my glare in my glasses. I know it's kind of an aside. I need to go and get new glasses, but I don't. This is what the Nazis did, man. What they did was they took their understanding of Jewish people, they weaponized it to kill them. And that's what's happening now. And it's not about Israel, not really. If it was about Israel, it would just be certain things here and there that are directly connected to Israel. This is like after 9/11, where people went after Arabic people, or Arabs. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly how to refer to them. And I see people like these diplomats killed, and I think this makes people look at you and think that everyone who supports your cause is a psycho, I mean, maybe I have some conflicting opinions, because I look at things like Luigi Mangione in that case. I've talked about it on Degenerate Plays. We get more into like both jokes and serious topics over there because it's more of like a podcast style channel. But like, this was targeted, man. This was outside of a Jewish museum. Like, this was on purpose there. And I am just awestruck at the violence of our world and the excuses made to commit it. I don't know. To me, this isn't a case like Luigi. This isn't a case where it's like there's a guy who's directly or indirectly, in my opinion, responsible for the death of a lot of people. This is a couple of representatives who have very limited power, if any, in the conflict that you're screaming about. And I genuinely think a problem with our world is that people don't have a sense of belonging. So they run to politics as their religion. Now, I'm not here to tell you, like, go adopt my religion, go become a Christian, or go become a deist, or whatever you want. I'm not really here to do that because, like, that's... One, I think it does the opposite. I think it pushes people away from those things. And two, I just think it's tacky a lot of times. But don't go to politics for your religion. Politics matter. These conflicts matter. But Americans are acting like they are the authority on understanding these things, and they are not. And there are other conflicts going on right now in the world that are being completely ignored too, like what's going on with India and Pakistan. Sorry, I'm a little frustrated. Like, I have a friend in India, and, you know, what's going on with his country is there's been kind of a Cold War with Pakistan for a very long time. And now people are on India because they're saying, hey, you attacked Pakistan. Why'd you do that? They're ignoring a massacre that happened of civilians that led to a retaliation. Now, I'm not saying that India is always right either. That's not my point. But my point is that, not to play centrist, that's not my point either. But my point is that there is so much context missing, I think, that Americans especially, and a lot of people around the world aren't seeing from different events. And then they are taking those things. They are internalizing what they know. And then they're externalizing an anger and a violence that is used to excuse and permit hate crimes. This is a hate crime. I know people will get on this moral high ground and say, there's no such thing as hate speech. Okay, whatever you think about that, if I go and beat the hell out of a black person because they are black, and that is my motivation, that is a hate crime, right? If I go and shoot someone who is of Jewish descent just because they're Jewish, or I go even bully them just because they're Jewish, and that's it. That's the whole thing. It's not just that I'm some dick. It's not just that I am, like, indiscriminately targeting people. It's just, oh, this person's Jewish, time to bully. You get the bully hat on. That's a hate crime. And that's what's happening. I've seen it happen here. I've seen people be, like, Jewish students on campuses here in Minnesota, of all places, are worried because of activists. If you're an activist and you frighten civilians who have nothing to do with your cause or its opposition, I'm sorry, but you're now a terrorist. You're not an activist. You're a terrorist. Terrorists attack civilians. It's one of the reasons why people should be decrying certain things that the IDF has done, and people should be decrying some of the things, actually, that the other side has done with, like, things like Hamas, you know? And I don't understand why people can't wrap their head around that in war, it gets extremely complicated. There is a lot more to these stories. I'm not saying you never act. I'm not saying you don't vote. I'm not saying you don't speak out. But we are entering an age where anti-Semitism is being paraded around with a very, very thin veil, or a tiny-ass mask of anti-Zionism over it. And I think very little of it is actually about that. And it's more about people not having anything going on in their lives and clinging on to causes that they don't fully understand and using it to make violence okay. There are very few times where violence is okay. Now, I have to be very careful what I talk about when I say this, because this is YouTube, and the YouTube terms of service are very strict with encouraging violence. But I will say that there are times in history, and there are times of oppression, where violence is necessary. It sucks, but I do think it's unfortunately true that there have been times where it is. I don't think that is the same as targeting civilians. I don't think that is the same as terror attacks that go after people who don't have really much of any power over the conflict that you're talking about. I don't think it's the same as bullying people for their skin color or their heritage. I don't think these are the same. I think this is disgusting. And I don't know. I don't even know what else to say about it. I don't even know why I felt like I should talk about it. I'm sure I lost a bunch of people. I'm sure a bunch of people are like, I didn't come here for politics. How can you have opinions on these things? You need to get informed and look at this. And I'm sure there's things I don't understand about these conflicts too. I'm 100% sure there is. I don't think I'm perfect, okay? When you come to this channel for anything, I don't think I'm perfect. I don't think I have all the answers. I hope that what you understand is that I'm a person just like you who wants to talk about whatever's on my mind. And I am genuinely disgusted that we have hit a point where more and more of this is considered okay. It's not okay. It's not acceptable. It shouldn't be acceptable. I don't care who you are. If you're going after someone because of the country they're from, or their ethnicity, or their background, and it has nothing to do with that personal person, even, it's not even personal, it's just their background, you're a terrorist, man, and you're a racist. And I don't get when this was considered acceptable or why this is celebrated. You will see people today celebrating these deaths. You will see people celebrating what was done. And I want you to think about that. And I want you to think about, even when there are very, very, very good points against Israel and their government and their military, and there are very good points for the people in the area of Palestine and in Gaza who are definitely going through the ringer right now, and that's putting it lightly. Even when there are very good points about that, even if you are the most staunchly anti-Israel person on the planet, how do you think this is going to make a lot of people respond to your cause? It is going to turn them on you. It is going to turn people to basically give you a blind eye, to basically turn a deaf ear to you and not want to listen. So from all angles, morality, self-serving interests, all of these, I don't get why people do these things. It's psychotic. And we need to stop making excuses for people.